Here are 20 foods Grandma stockpile that never expire. Lard. Have you ever heard of a food so tough it laughs in the face of time? Meat lard, the old school cooking fat Grandma swore by. Before fridges, people needed food that lasted, and lard, it stepped up like a champion. Stored properly, cool, dark, and airtight, it can last practically forever. No ticking expiration clock here. Why? Because lard is almost pure fat, meaning no moisture for bacteria to thrive. Unlike butter, it stays too dry for microbial squatters. When properly rendered, aka all impurities cooked out, there's nothing left to spoil. Grandma didn't just fry with lard, she baked flaky pie crusts, seasoned cast iron, and even made soap. Some even use it as an old-school moisturizer. Lard's only enemy? Air. Left exposed, it turns rancid. Keep it sealed, and it's good for the long haul. Funny how we chase fancy oils when lard has stood the test of time. Ready for the next food on Grandma's list? Pemmican. Long before protein bars lined grocery store shelves, Grandma had a survival food that could outlast just about anything. Pemmican. This old-school superfood kept pioneers, hunters, and soldiers going strong through harsh winters and long journeys, and Grandma knew it was worth stockpiling. Made from just 3 simple ingredients, lean dried meat, rendered fat, and sometimes berries, pemmican was her go-to for a long-lasting, high-energy snack. The secret? Fat acts as a natural preservative, sealing out air and moisture while keeping the meat from spoiling. The meat itself is dried until it's rock hard, so dry that bacteria don't stand a chance. When combined with fat, it becomes a nutrient-dense powerhouse that can last for decades without refrigeration. Grandma would dry lean meat to a brittle texture, grind it into powder, and mix it with melted fat, sometimes throwing in berries for extra flavor and nutrients. Kept cool and dry, pemmican outlasts just about anything in the pantry. If it was good enough for Grandma, you know it's worth stocking up on. Jerky. Grandma didn't need fancy preservatives. She had jerky, the ultimate grab-and-go survival snack. People have been drying meat for centuries, and Grandma knew exactly why. Take the moisture out, and bacteria don't stand a chance. It's like locking the door and throwing away the key. No water, no spoilage. While we snack on store-bought versions packed with additives, she made the real deal with just meat, salt, and thyme. The process is simple but genius. First, slice the meat thin. Then salt it like you mean it, because salt isn't just for flavor, it's food's security guard. After that, it's all about drying. Whether over a low fire, in the sun, or in a warm kitchen, the goal is the same. Pull out every last bit of moisture. Properly dried and stored, jerky can last for months, even years. Grandma kept hers in airtight containers, knowing it would be ready whenever hunger struck. Forget those overpriced protein bars. Jerky was and still is the real MVP of long-lasting food. Distilled alcohol. While jerky keeps you fed and salt keeps food fresh, distilled alcohol is over here playing the long game too. Grandma knew that a well-stocked pantry wasn't complete without a bottle or a few of the strong stuff. Not just for sipping, but for survival. Get this. Unopened, high-proof liquor lasts forever. That's right, whiskey, rum, vodka. If stored properly, they won't age, spoil, or turn into something regrettable like wine or beer. Makes that half-empty bottle in your cabinet seem pretty invincible, doesn't it? Grandma wasn't just keeping it around for a nightcap. Distilled alcohol can disinfect wounds, preserve fruit, fuel a fire, or even be used for bartering when times get tough. The trick? Keep it sealed and stashed somewhere cool and dark. No sunlight, no heat, no problem. Most old people know this, often storing their spirits in glass containers to keep them pure. A pantry without distilled alcohol? That's like a winter without firewood. You might get by, but why make life harder than it has to be? Honey? If lard is the marathon runner of the pantry, then honey is the undefeated champion. Grandma knew it, and that's why she always kept a jar or 10 on hand. Honey doesn't just last years, it lasts forever. Archaeologists have found jars of it in ancient Egyptian tombs, still perfectly good to eat. Makes those best by dates on store-bought honey seem pretty silly, doesn't it? While most foods break down over time, honey just shrugs off the years. The secret? It's too low in water and too high in sugar for bacteria to survive. It even has natural antimicrobial properties, making it one of the toughest foods on the planet. Grandma didn't just use honey for sweetening tea, she baked with it, used it as medicine, and even mixed it into homemade skincare. If it ever crystallized, she knew the trick, a warm water bath to bring it back to liquid gold. Stored in a sealed jar and kept cool, honey outlasts just about everything. Salt. Here's the deal with salt. It's like the security guard of your pantry, standing watch and keeping food fresh since forever. Grandma knew it was worth its weight in gold, and back in the day, people actually paid with salt. Imagine handing over a bag of table salt at checkout. That'll cover my groceries, right? Sounds crazy now, but salt was a big deal, and it still is. This stuff doesn't just make food taste better, it straight up stops it from going bad. Cover meat in salt, and bacteria don't stand a chance. Pack veggies in salt, and they'll last like they just signed a lease in your pantry. But here's where salt really shows off. It doesn't just preserve food, it preserves itself. No mold, no expiration date, no weird storage tricks. The only thing that can mess it up? Moisture. Get it wet, and suddenly you've got a rock-hard brick. Grandma wasn't about to let that happen. She stored hers airtight and dry, knowing salt would stay perfect forever. Dried chickpeas. These little beige powerhouses are like edible time capsules. They've been feeding civilizations for thousands of years and show no signs of slowing down. In fact, archaeologists have found dried chickpeas in ancient sites still capable of sprouting. Try getting that kind of longevity from your snack drawer. Grandma knew that chickpeas weren't just for fancy Mediterranean dishes. They're protein-packed, fiber-rich, and versatile enough to turn into everything from soups to flour. And here's the best part. Unlike canned beans, dried chickpeas don't come with a ticking expiration date. They're like the survivalists of the legume world. Give them the right storage conditions, and they'll stick around for decades. But like all long-haul pantry staples, they've got some demands. First, they need a cool, dry spot. No steamy kitchen cabinets or damp basements allowed. Second, they need an airtight home. Think food-grade buckets, glass jars, or vacuum-sealed bags. Do it right, and your chickpeas will stay fresh longer than your best-laid meal prep plans. Instant coffee. The caffeinated miracle that's been keeping people awake since long before energy drinks took over. Instant coffee, or as Grandma called it, her liquid motivation. While fancy baristas might turn their noses up at it, instant coffee is the rock star of long-lasting pantry staples. It doesn't just wake you up, it survives just about anything. Grandma didn't keep it around just because it was easy, though she loved that too. She stocked it because it practically lasts forever. Think about it. It's already dehydrated, meaning it came pre-shelf stable on purpose. It's like the time capsule of caffeine. It just sits there, waiting for its moment to shine. Need a quick pick-me-up? Instant coffee's got your back. No grinder, no brewer, no problem. Just add hot water and go. Here's the kicker. Stored in an airtight container, away from moisture, it'll stay fresh for decades. The best kind? Freeze-dried. Locking in flavor while kicking shelf life into overdrive. Reliable, long-lasting, and always ready. Instant coffee is the pantry MVP Grandma never ran out of. Maple syrup. While most people are drowning their pancakes in store-bought syrup that's more corn syrup than maple, Grandma knew better. She stocked the real deal. Pure maple syrup, the kind that lasts forever and actually tastes like trees in the best way possible. Now you might be thinking, it's just syrup. What's the big deal? But in Grandma's kitchen, maple syrup was liquid gold. Need a natural sweetener? Maple syrup. Want to glaze meat like a pioneer? Maple syrup. Need an energy boost without the artificial junk? You guessed it, maple syrup to the rescue. Here's why it's a pantry essential. It's already naturally preserved. No additives, no chemicals, just tree sap boiled into perfection. As long as it's sealed and stored in a cool, dark place, it'll last for years. If it ever thickens or crystallizes, a little warmth brings it back. Grandma always kept hers in glass bottles, knowing that once you taste the real thing, you'll never go back to the imitation stuff. Cornstarch. You might think cornstarch is just that box hiding in your pantry, waiting for a gravy emergency, but in Grandma's kitchen, it was a long-lasting miracle worker. While we chase expensive thickeners and fancy baking additives, cornstarch is out here doing its job. No expiration date required. And here's the kicker. Properly stored, cornstarch lasts forever. That's right. The same container sitting in Grandma's pantry when you were a kid is probably still good today. While whole grains and flours can go rancid, cornstarch just chills in its container, laughing at time. Grandma knew the trick. Airtight container, cool, dry spot, no moisture allowed. Get it wet and you've got glue instead of a thickener. But stored right, cornstarch is the MVP of the kitchen. Need to thicken soup, crispy fried chicken, softer cookies, cornstarch to the rescue. It even works outside the kitchen for DIY dry shampoo and homemade Play-Doh. Simple, reliable, and built to last. Grandma always knew cornstarch was a must-have. Apple cider vinegar. Let's talk about how Grandma had a kitchen secret that could clean counters, preserve food, and even cure a sore throat, all without ever going bad. While we're stocking up on pricey cleaning sprays and fancy supplements, she was pouring apple cider vinegar like it was liquid gold. And here's the kicker, this stuff never expires. That's right, properly stored ACV will outlast most of your pantry staples and still be just as effective years later. But this isn't just any vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is like the Swiss Army knife of the kitchen. Need to pickle vegetables? ACV's got it covered. Dressing a salad? Toss in a splash. Feeling under the weather? Grandma might have handed you a spoonful, like it or not. The secret? It's already fermented, meaning it came pre-spoiled on purpose. Stored in a sealed glass bottle in a cool, dark place, it'll stay good indefinitely. The best kind, the one with the mother, that cloudy stuff full of probiotics and enzymes. Grandma knew ACV wasn't just useful, it was essential. Coconut oil. Living without butter or refrigeration might sound like a baker's nightmare, but Grandma had a secret weapon in her pantry, coconut oil. While most of us only think about it for trendy health fads, Grandma saw it as pure gold. It's like having a stick of butter that never spoils. Here's something wild. Properly stored, coconut oil can last up to 5 years. That's right. While your expensive olive oil is going rancid, coconut oil is just sitting there, unfazed by time. But Grandma didn't just use it for frying eggs. Need a dairy-free butter swap? Coconut oil. Want flaky pie crusts? Coconut oil. Looking for a natural moisturizer? You guessed it, coconut oil. It even works as wood polish and homemade toothpaste. The key? Keep it in a sealed jar, away from heat and moisture. Whether solid or liquid, it stays good. Grandma knew coconut oil wasn't just a pantry staple. It was a survival essential built to last. White vinegar? While we're out here buying overpriced cleaning sprays and preservatives, Grandma was sitting on a jug of white vinegar that could outlast most of our appliances. Get this, properly stored white vinegar can last forever. That's right. While your fancy organic condiments are going bad faster than you can use them, vinegar is just chilling in its bottle, completely unfazed by time. It's like the superhero of pantry staples, immune to expiration dates and ready to tackle just about anything. Grandma didn't just use white vinegar for salad dressings. She had it working overtime. Need to clean grimy windows? White vinegar. Descale a coffee maker? Vinegar's on it. Freshen up laundry? You guessed it, vinegar to the rescue. The trick to keeping it fresh? Just store it in a sealed glass or plastic container, away from direct sunlight. No refrigeration, no fancy packaging, just simple, old-fashioned common sense. Grandma knew vinegar wasn't just a pantry staple, it was a survival essential with more uses than most household products combined. Pickled vegetables. Think those store-bought pickles are good? That's adorable. Grandma was out here pickling everything from cucumbers to carrots, turning garden-fresh veggies into crunchy, tangy treasures that make grocery store jars taste like watered-down vinegar. While we're rushing to eat fresh produce before it goes bad, she was sealing up garden goodness to last for years. Here's something that'll change how you see pickles. Properly stored, pickled vegetables can last up to 2 years. That's right. While you're tossing wilted lettuce in the trash, Grandma is pulling out crisp green beans from 2022, still packed with flavor. It's like having a farmer's market in the middle of winter. But Grandma didn't just pickle anything that rolled off the vine. She picked veggies at their peak, firm, fresh, and ready to soak up that perfect blend of vinegar, salt, and spices. Stored in cool, dark places, these jars of tangy goodness weren't just for sandwiches. They brightened up every meal, no fridge required. Rolled oats. While most people think of oats as just that boring bowl of breakfast mush, Grandma knew better. Rolled oats are a pantry goldmine. While we're out here paying premium prices for fancy granola and protein bars, she was sitting on bags of oats that could outlast most appliances. Here's something that'll make you rethink your breakfast game. Properly stored rolled oats can last up to 30 years. That's right. While your trendy organic cereal is going stale, oats are just chilling in their container, ready to fuel generations. But oats aren't just for oatmeal. In Grandma's kitchen, they were the Swiss Army knife of grains. Need a thickener for soup? Rolled oats. Want homemade oat flour for baking? A quick grind and you're set. Craving crispy golden granola? Oats to the rescue. The trick to keeping them fresh? Store them in airtight containers, glass jars, food-grade buckets, or Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Done right, oats aren't just a breakfast staple. They're a survival essential. Sauerkraut. You might think sauerkraut is just that weird topping for hot dogs, but Grandma knew better. This stuff is a long-term storage powerhouse. While most of us are tossing wilted cabbage into the compost, she was turning it into a probiotic-packed goldmine that could sit in the pantry for years. And here's the kicker. Properly fermented sauerkraut doesn't just last, it gets better with time. That's right. While your fresh veggies are turning into a soggy mess, sauerkraut is just chilling, developing even more flavor and gut-friendly goodness. So what makes sauerkraut a storage superstar? It's all about the fermentation. Salt works its magic, keeping bad bacteria out while letting the good stuff take over. No refrigeration, no fancy equipment, just cabbage, salt, and patience. Grandma stored hers in big glass jars or ceramic crocks, keeping them in a cool, dark place. The result? A crunchy, tangy, vitamin-packed food that's ready to liven up meals all year long. When it comes to long-lasting nutrition, sauerkraut is the real deal. White rice. Forget those overpriced, vacuum-sealed survival meals. Let's talk about how Grandma turned a simple bag of white rice into a stockpile of food security that could outlast most kitchen gadgets. While we're out here checking expiration dates on instant meal kits, she was quietly storing rice like it was the backbone of her pantry, which, let's be honest, it was. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Properly stored white rice can last 30 years or more. That's right. While your fancy organic quinoa is getting buggy after a few months, white rice is just sitting there, unbothered, waiting to feed future generations. But Grandma wasn't stocking up on just any rice. White rice is the real long-term hero. Brown rice, while nutritious, has oils that make it go rancid faster. White rice, on the other hand, is pure starch, meaning it stays fresh indefinitely when stored right. The trick? Airtight containers, glass jars, food-grade buckets, or Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers to keep out moisture, pests, and air. Done right, white rice is the ultimate survival food. Hardtack. Let's break the ice. Actually, let's break the hardtack if you can. This rock-solid biscuit has been fueling sailors, soldiers, and survivalists for centuries, and Grandma knew why. It never goes bad. While we're tossing out loaves of bread that go moldy in a week, hardtack is just sitting there, laughing at expiration dates. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Properly stored hardtack can last decades. That's right, while your fancy whole grain loaf is going stale, hardtack is still standing strong, ready to feed whoever's brave enough to take a bite. But this isn't just a glorified cracker, it's a survival essential. Made from just flour, water, and a pinch of salt, hardtack is baked until it's drier than your uncle's jokes, making it nearly indestructible. The trick to eating it, soak it in soup, stew, or even coffee to soften it up. Stored in airtight containers, hardtack can outlast almost anything in your pantry, because when it comes to long-term food, Grandma didn't mess around. Dried beans. Let's spill the beans, literally, about how Grandma turned these little powerhouses into a survival staple that could outlast most pantry items and keep you full for days. While most of us are side-eyeing that bag of beans we bought during a health kick 5 years ago, Grandma was stocking up, knowing they'd still be good decades later. That's right, properly stored dried beans can last 30 years or more. While your overpriced protein powder is expiring in the cupboard, dried beans are just chilling, waiting to be turned into something delicious. But these aren't just emergency food, they're kitchen workhorses. Need a hearty soup? Beans. Want to stretch a meal without spending extra cash? Beans. Looking for plant-based protein before it was trendy? You guessed it, beans. The trick to storing them long-term? Airtight containers kept cool and dry, no plastic bags that let in moisture, no forgotten pantry corners. Done right, dried beans are a nutritional goldmine that stand the test of time, just like Grandma's best recipes. Dry cocoa powder. Let's talk about the real pantry MVP. Cocoa powder, the chocolate lover's best friend and a storage champion that refuses to go bad. While most of us are tossing out stale cookies and expired chocolate bars, Grandma was sitting on a stash of cocoa powder that could outlast most relationships. Here's something that'll make you rethink your baking shelf. Properly stored dry cocoa powder can last indefinitely, that's right. While your fancy chocolate truffles are turning chalky, cocoa powder is just hanging out, ready to turn anything into a rich, chocolatey masterpiece. But this isn't just for brownies. Need a warm cup of homemade hot cocoa? Cocoa powder. Want to add a deep chocolate flavor to your chili? Cocoa powder. Looking for a caffeine boost without the coffee? Yep, cocoa powder again. The trick? Store it in an airtight container, away from heat and moisture, and it'll stay fresh for years. Grandma knew the secret. When it comes to stocking up smart, cocoa powder is the gift that keeps on giving. For more contents like this, click here to subscribe.